Look at her just sitting there, probably thinking about her next shopping trip.
CFO Marcus Webb whispered to the board member beside him, his voice carrying just enough for Sophia Chen to hear. Around the polished mahogany table, a few executives smirked at the comment. "Richard married a supermodel, not a business partner," another voice murmured from across the room, echoing the sentiment that had become commonplace in these meetings. "I bet she doesn't even know what we're discussing," James Morrison added quietly, his tone dripping with condescension. "Probably planning her spa appointment for this afternoon." Sophia's perfectly manicured fingers drummed silently against the table surface, her flawless smile never wavering despite the barbed comments. She was absolutely breathtaking, long black hair cascading over her shoulders like silk, features that belonged on magazine covers, her cream-colored blouse tailored to perfection, with just enough décolletage to catch the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. $20 says she's thinking about which designer bag to buy next, another executive whispered, causing a ripple of barely suppressed laughter around the table. "Gentlemen," she said softly, her voice like honey poured over razor blades, "perhaps we should focus on the quarterly."
The conference room door exploded inward, with devastating force, wood splinters flying across the imported marble floor like deadly projectiles. 3 figures in black tactical gear stormed through the opening, automatic weapons raised with military precision, faces hidden behind menacing black masks that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "Everybody down, now!" The boardroom erupted into absolute chaos. $1 million suits hit the floor as 12 of Silicon Valley's most powerful men scrambled under the massive conference table like frightened children hiding from thunder. Coffee cups shattered against the marble, their contents spreading dark stains across the pristine surface. Papers scattered like autumn leaves. Panic filled the air like poisonous smoke. All except one person. Sophia Chen remained seated with perfect composure, her blue eyes studying the attackers with the detached professional interest of someone evaluating a chess problem. No fear flickered across her features. No panic disturbed her breathing, just cold, calculating assessment. Finally, she whispered to herself, so quietly that only she could hear, some real excitement. "Ah, blank_blank. Welcome to Quiet Tale Studio." Before we continue this story of hidden strength and deadly beauty, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us share these tales of quiet warriors walking among us. The morning had started like any other quarterly board meeting at Chen Dynamics, the technology giant that had revolutionized cybersecurity for Fortune 500 companies and government agencies worldwide. The 52nd floor conference room overlooks San Francisco Bay, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Richard Chen, CEO and founder, had built his empire from absolutely nothing, a brilliant technological mind operating in one of the most competitive industries on Earth. At 45, he commanded instant respect in every room he entered, his reputation preceding him like the wake of a powerful ship. His company's military contracts alone were worth billions, protecting some of the most sensitive communications and data systems in the modern world. Sophia had arrived 30 minutes early, as she always did without fail, taking her customary seat at the far end of the conference table, strategically positioned away from the main presentation area. The executives filed in one by one over the course of 15 minutes, each offering polite nods and carefully measured smiles to the CEO's stunningly beautiful wife. "Mrs. Chen, lovely to see you again," said Marcus Webb, the chief financial officer who had been with the company since its scrappy startup days in a shared office space. His tone was pleasant enough on the surface, but his eyes held that familiar dismissiveness she had grown accustomed to over 3 years of marriage, the look reserved for expensive decorations. "The pleasure is entirely mine, Marcus," she replied with practiced warmth, settling into her chair with the unconscious grace of someone who had spent years perfecting the delicate art of appearing completely harmless. As Richard launched into his comprehensive quarterly presentation, complete with detailed financial projections and market analysis, the whispers began in earnest around the table. "Does she even understand what quarterly projections actually represent?" someone muttered during the revenue slides, not bothering to lower their voice significantly. Probably thinks EBITDA is some new form of yoga pose. Morrison chuckled quietly, earning appreciative smirks from his neighbors. I heard from reliable sources that she spends over $50,000 every single month just on shopping, another voice added with barely concealed amazement. Richard's basically supporting a very expensive and very beautiful hobby. Sophia listened to every word with the same polite attention she had demonstrated consistently for 3 years, her facial expression never changing, never betraying even the slightest hint of irritation or wounded pride. To them, she represented exactly what they expected. A gorgeous accessory to complement a successful man's life, someone who looked appropriately stunning at charity galas and company Christmas parties, but had absolutely no place in serious business discussions involving millions of dollars and national security. They had absolutely no idea how catastrophically dangerously wrong they were. The defense contracts have proven particularly promising this quarter, Richard continued enthusiastically, clicking to advance to the next slide in his presentation. Our proprietary encryption software is currently protecting some of the most sensitive military communication systems in the entire world, from satellite networks to drone operations. Sophia's fingers tapped an almost imperceptible rhythm against the polished table surface. Tap, tap, pause, tap. It was an old code she had developed and refined during her years of active military service, completely meaningless to civilians, but one that had once meant the difference between life and death in the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan. The Pentagon has specifically requested that we expand our operations into 3 entirely new technological areas, Richard continued with obvious pride. Advanced drone communication systems, next-generation satellite encryption protocols, and something I'm not permitted to discuss in any detail. A highly classified project involving special operations communications that could revolutionize how our military conducts sensitive missions. Webb leaned back in his expensive leather chair, clearly impressed. Those are genuinely impressive numbers, Richard, though I imagine the military procurement officers are extraordinarily tough negotiators when it comes to pricing. They absolutely are, Richard agreed readily. But when you have the demonstrably best product available, you can command the best possible price in return. Speaking of the best, Morrison interjected with a poorly concealed smirk. Mrs. Chen appears somewhat distracted this morning. I certainly hope we're not boring you with all this highly technical business discussion. A few knowing chuckles rippled around the room like stones dropped in still water. Sophia turned her full attention to Morrison, her smile brightening like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. Not at all, James. I find cybersecurity absolutely fascinating, particularly the military applications and real-world implications. Her voice carried a subtle authority that made Morrison pause uncertainly. In fact, I was specifically wondering about the penetration testing protocols for these new defense contracts. Have you thoroughly considered advanced persistent threat scenarios involving hostile state-sponsored actors? The room went completely quiet, the silence thick and uncomfortable. Morrison blinked repeatedly, clearly unprepared for such a technically sophisticated question from someone he had dismissed as the CEO's decorative wife. Well, that's honestly more Richard's specific area of expertise than mine. Richard looked genuinely surprised, but obviously pleased by his wife's unexpected technical knowledge. Sophia has always demonstrated interest in the technological side of our operations. She possesses quite a remarkable eye for identifying potential security vulnerabilities. If only they truly knew, Sophia thought with dark amusement. If only they understood that she had spent 8 intensive years identifying and systematically eliminating security vulnerabilities of an entirely different nature. The kind that walked on 2 legs and carried weapons specifically designed to kill Americans and their allies. Marcus Webb leaned conspiratorially toward the executive seated beside him. She probably just read some simplified article about cybersecurity basics in Cosmopolitan magazine. He whispered with obvious condescension, speaking just loud enough for Sophia to hear clearly. You know how those publications try to make everything sound mysteriously accessible to their target demographic? Something fundamental shifted in her eyes, a coldness that didn't match the continued warmth of her carefully maintained smile. Actually, Marcus, she said with deceptive pleasantness, I was thinking more about genuine real-world applications. You know, the kind of situations where catastrophic failure isn't merely a financial loss that affects quarterly profits. It's literally measured in body bags and grieving families. The room grew noticeably uncomfortable, tension thickening like fog. Webb shifted nervously in his seat, clearly not expecting such a dark and serious turn from someone he had categorized as a pampered socialite. Well, thankfully we don't have to worry about that particular kind of intensity in our specific line of work. Sophia's smile widened significantly, but the expression didn't reach her eyes. No, I suppose you don't. Her phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced casually at the screen, and her expression changed completely and instantaneously. The polite social mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something much harder, more professional, infinitely more dangerous underneath. The message was devastatingly simple. Hostile entry confirmed. Elevator banks compromised. Stairwells blocked. You are completely isolated. She stood with fluid grace, smoothing down her skirt with practiced movements. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we have a very serious problem. What kind of problem? Richard asked, genuine concern creeping into his voice for the first time that morning. The kind where you might want to. The building shook violently. A deep, rumbling explosion from somewhere far below rattled the windows and sent vibrations through the steel framework. Emergency alarms began wailing throughout the tower, their harsh electronic voices cutting through the morning air like knives. 3 figures in professional tactical gear burst through the splintered door opening, military-grade weapons raised with textbook precision, faces completely hidden behind matte black masks that reflected no light. Professional, coordinated, absolutely lethal military precision in every movement. Everybody down now! Chaos erupted instantly and completely. 12 of the most powerful men in Silicon Valley scrambled desperately under the massive conference table, like children hiding from an approaching thunderstorm. Expensive suits wrinkled against the cold marble floor, coffee cups shattered, their contents spreading in dark, abstract patterns across imported Persian rugs. The projector screen flickered once and died completely. All except one person. Sophia Chen remained seated with perfect composure, studying the attackers with the detached interest of someone evaluating pieces on a chessboard. "Ma'am, I said down!" The lead gunman swung his weapon directly toward her with obvious aggression. She tilted her head slightly, studying his stance, his grip, his positioning with professional assessment. "I heard you clearly the first time." Her voice now carried an entirely new quality, command authority that cut through chaos like a surgical blade. The gunman hesitated involuntarily, something in her tone triggering deep instinctive recognition of military hierarchy. "Impressive weapons handling," she observed conversationally, as if commenting on pleasant weather. "Modified M4 carbines with high-quality suppressors, textbook tactical entry formation with properly overlapping fields of fire. Definitely extensive military training in your backgrounds." The lead gunman stared at her through his mask with growing confusion. "What did you just say?" "I said you're exceptionally well-trained. Former military service, I would confidently guess. Army Rangers, perhaps Marines with combat experience?" She stood slowly, her movements fluid and completely controlled. "But definitely not Special Operations Forces. True SOF would have secured both elevator banks and all stairwell access points first, not simply block them." Under the table, Richard Chen watched his wife with stunned, complete silence. This wasn't the woman who organized elaborate charity luncheons and attended sophisticated gallery openings. This was someone entirely different. Someone who discussed tactical formations and weapons modifications, like she was selecting wine for dinner. "Lady, you need to shut up immediately and get on the ground," the second gunman snarled, his voice tight with escalating stress and confusion. Sophia smiled, the same warm, engaging smile she had worn throughout the morning meeting, but now it carried something distinctly predatory. Or, what exactly? "You'll shoot the CEO's wife in front of 12 witnesses? That doesn't seem like particularly intelligent tactical thinking." "You're absolutely lying," the second gunman said, but his voice completely lacked conviction and confidence. "Am I really?" Sophia reached into her jacket pocket with deliberate, calculated slowness. "Easy now," she said calmly to the increasingly nervous gunman. "I'm simply retrieving something to show you for verification purposes." She extracted a thin leather wallet, flipping it open with practiced precision to reveal a military identification card and several colorful ribbons mounted on a small display board. Bronze Star with Valor Device Attachment, Afghanistan 2019. Awarded for extraordinary actions during sustained enemy contact when I successfully led a 12-person team through an active minefield to extract wounded civilians from a collapsed medical facility under heavy fire. She moved methodically to the next ribbon, her voice taking on the mechanical, emotionless tone of someone reciting an official service record from memory. Purple Heart with Oak Leaf Cluster, Iraq 2020. Received multiple shrapnel wounds from an improvised explosive device while providing sustained covering fire for evacuating wounded personnel. 14 stitches required, returned to active combat duty exactly 6 days later. The third gunman, who had remained completely silent throughout the entire exchange, lowered his weapon slightly with obvious uncertainty. "No possible way. You're too conventionally attractive to be a professional soldier?" Sophia finished his sentence with obvious amusement. "That's exactly what everyone thinks initially. It's been my greatest operational asset for over a decade of active service." She closed the wallet with a decisive snap, her movements still completely calm and controlled, despite the obvious danger. In special operations, we call it gray man theory. Blend seamlessly into your environment. Become completely invisible. Transform yourself into exactly what people expect to see, so they stop looking any deeper. She gestured to herself with genuine self-deprecating humor. Nobody ever suspects the pretty wife. Nobody questions why she's always present at corporate events, always listening carefully, always watching everything with keen interest. Richard's voice emerged from under the table, shaky and filled with amazement. "Sophia, how did I not know any of this?" "Because you saw exactly what I wanted you to see, honey. The charity luncheons, gallery openings, shopping expeditions, all completely real activities. But that was my carefully constructed cover identity, not my actual life." She turned back to face the gunman, her expression growing deadly serious. "The critical question now is, what exactly is your exit strategy? Because I can tell you with absolute certainty right now, whatever you planned isn't going to work." The lead gunman's weapon shook noticeably in his hands. We're trained professionals. We planned this operation carefully." "No, you're absolutely not. And no, you definitely didn't." Sophia's voice turned cold and clinically analytical. True professionals would have conducted thorough homework. You would have discovered that Chen Dynamics isn't just any ordinary technology company. It's a classified defense contractor with federal protection protocols and a security consultant who specializes in exactly this type of threat scenario. She pointed toward the windows where the sound of approaching helicopters was growing steadily louder. "Those sirens you're hearing? That's San Francisco Police Department, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and a specialized tactical response team that was strategically stationed exactly 6 blocks away as part of standard protection protocols for this particular building. The helicopters approaching, those aren't news crews. You're obviously bluffing again. Verify it yourselves. Check your mobile phones." All 3 gunmen instinctively reached for their personal devices. Every screen displayed the identical message: "No signal available." "Faraday cage automatically activated when my phone transmitted the initial alert," Sophia explained with matter-of-fact precision. "This entire floor is now electronically isolated from all outside communication. No signals in or out. Your backup team, if you actually have one, has absolutely no idea what's happening up here." The first gunman was visibly sweating now, his professional composure cracking under pressure. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to place your weapons on the floor, put your hands behind your heads, and surrender peacefully. No one needs to get hurt today unnecessarily." "We can't do that. You don't understand what's at stake here." "Then enlighten me completely." Sophia's posture shifted subtly. Weight forward, hands loose at her sides, ready for immediate action. What's worth throwing your lives away for? The encryption protocols, the second gunman said desperately, his composure finally breaking. They're worth hundreds of millions on the international black market. Military communications, satellite networks, drone control systems, everything. Ah, Sophia nodded with complete understanding. You're not ideological terrorists. You're mercenaries motivated by profit. That actually makes this situation considerably easier. Easier how exactly? Because terrorists possess ideology. They're willing to die for their cause, no matter how misguided. But mercenaries? She smiled with Arctic coldness. Mercenaries just want to get paid and go home to their families. She took another measured step closer to them. Here's exactly what's going to happen. In approximately 30 seconds, this room is going to fill with federal agents who specialize exclusively in counterterrorism operations. They're not going to be particularly interested in taking prisoners if they perceive you as a threat to national security. The lead gunman's resolve was visibly cracking. We have hostages. No, you have witnesses. There's a significant legal difference. Sophia's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But if you hurt any of these people, you're not dealing with federal agents anymore. You're dealing directly with me. There's 3 of us, and only 1 of you. Is there really? Sophia's hand moved smoothly to her collar, adjusting what had appeared to be a decorative pin. A small red light began blinking steadily. That's a military-grade transponder. It just transmitted my exact location and current situation status to my backup team. From somewhere deep in the building came the unmistakable sound of running footsteps. Multiple sets, moving with obvious military precision up the emergency stairwells. Your backup? The second gunman's voice cracked with growing panic. Private security contractors. All former military personnel, most with special operations experience. They've been monitoring this building continuously since the moment you entered the lobby downstairs. She tilted her head slightly, listening to the approaching tactical sounds. Did you really think one retired captain could secure a 50-story building completely alone? The tactical footsteps were getting progressively closer, echoing up the concrete stairwells with the distinctive rhythm of soldiers who had performed this exact dance many times before in hostile territory. Last chance for peaceful resolution, Sophia said, her voice carrying absolute finality. Weapons down, hands visible, and we all walk away from this. The lead gunman looked desperately at his team, then back at Sophia. For the first time since they had entered the room, he seemed to really see her, not the beautiful woman in expensive designer clothes, but the professional soldier underneath. You planned this entire thing, he realized with growing horror. I've been planning for this exact scenario since the day I married Richard. Every charity event, every board meeting, every public appearance. I was systematically learning this building, these people, the security vulnerabilities, the potential threats. Her smile was absolutely arctic now. You didn't walk into a random corporate raid. You walked into a trap that's been 3 years in the making. The tactical team burst through the conference room door with explosive precision. 6 operators in full tactical gear, weapons trained on the 3 gunmen with laser accuracy. Professional, silent, absolutely lethal in their efficiency. Federal agents, drop your weapons immediately. Now! The overwhelming show of force was immediate and decisive. The 3 gunmen, already psychologically defeated by Sophia's systematic revelations, dropped their weapons without resistance and raised their hands. Package secured, the lead operator reported into his radio. 3 suspects in custody, no casualties reported. Sophia walked calmly to the team leader, whose insignia clearly marked him as a full colonel. Outstanding response time, Colonel Martinez. He nodded with obvious professional respect. Outstanding preparation and intelligence work, Captain. Your advance information was absolutely perfect. Captain? Richard emerged from under the table, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained with spilled coffee, his entire understanding of reality completely shattered. What the hell is happening here? Sophia turned to face her husband and the board members, who were slowly and shakily climbing out from their hiding spots like survivors of a natural disaster. Richard, I need to tell you something that's going to be extremely difficult to process completely. The woman you married, her feelings for you are absolutely real and genuine. But she's not the complete story. She gestured toward the tactical team, efficiently zip-tying the gunmen and beginning their methodical security sweep of the room. For the past 3 years, I've been providing deep cover security for Chen Dynamics and everyone in it. The military contracts you've been so proud of winning? They made you and this company a high-value target for hostile foreign governments, terrorist organizations, and corporate espionage operations. Marcus Webb, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated, stammered helplessly, But you're just what exactly, Marcus? Just a pretty face who attends charity lunches?" Sophia's expression was genuinely amused now. Just someone who organizes fundraising events and looks appropriately stunning in photographs? She walked confidently to the head of the conference table, her heels clicking with new authority. "Those charity events you've observed me attending? Half the attendees were intelligence assets running sophisticated counter-surveillance operations. The photographs from society pages? Facial recognition databases for comprehensive threat assessment. The shopping trips you all joked about so dismissively? Dead drops, surveillance runs, and clandestine meetings with my operational handlers." The room remained dead silent, except for the tactical team's efficient radio chatter. "Every single board meeting for 3 years, I've been here not as Richard's wife, but as his personal protection detail, watching for potential threats, learning vulnerabilities, building security protocols, and, yes, waiting for exactly what just happened." She turned to her husband, her expression softening slightly. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth. The mission required absolute deep cover." Richard stared at her, his mind racing. "The mission?" "To protect Chen Dynamics from exactly what just happened. Corporate espionage, theft of classified military technology, potential terrorist acquisition of cybersecurity protocols that could compromise national security." Colonel Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to begin the debriefing process immediately." "Of course," she looked back at the board members. "Gentlemen, this incident is now classified at the highest levels. You'll be interviewed by federal investigators, you'll sign comprehensive non-disclosure agreements, and then we'll never discuss what happened here." She picked up her purse, checking her reflection in a compact mirror. "Richard, we'll need to talk tonight. There's much more to explain." As she walked toward the door, Morrison called out, "Sophia, Captain, we owe you more than an apology." She paused, turning back with that familiar, warm smile. "No apology necessary, James. You saw exactly what I wanted you to see." The smile turned sharp. "But maybe next time, don't underestimate the quiet ones." 6 months later, the Chen Dynamics board meeting looked dramatically different. Sophia still sat at the end of the table, still beautiful, still perfectly dressed. But now when she spoke, everyone listened with complete attention. "The quarterly security assessment shows marked improvement in all sectors," she reported, her new title reading VP of Corporate Security on the agenda. "Any concerns?" Richard asked. Marcus Webb raised his hand tentatively. "Ma'am, about the employee screening protocols." "Yes, Marcus?" "They're very thorough." Sophia smiled, warm but firm. "They need to be. We're protecting lives." She closed her folder and stood. "Same time? Next quarter?" As board members filed out, Richard stayed behind. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About what?" "Giving up the secret agent life?" Sophia laughed genuinely. "Richard, who says I gave it up?" She kissed his cheek and walked toward the door. "Besides, someone has to keep an eye on you." Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. Sometimes strength doesn't announce itself with loud voices or aggressive postures. Sometimes it sits quietly, smiles warmly, and waits for the moment when it's needed most. At Quiet Hill Studio, we believe that every person has hidden depths, and every story has the power to change how we see the world. Have you ever misjudged someone based on their appearance? Share your story in the comments below. And remember, the quiet ones are often the ones you should watch most carefully. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about hidden warriors walking among us. We'll see you in the next one.